This is the Hilton family. If you watched my last video, you saw me build the main home of 6 of these 8 family members. 2 of which are the grandparents that do not live with the rest of the family, and I'll be building their home in this video. For their home, it was important to me to build them a space that is decidedly theirs, the twosome home, with all the things they need, but also incorporating a lot of little trinkets and memorabilia for their family. I wanted this house to seem old and traditional, but not the Sims themselves. So, welcome everybody, I'm Natalie, your friendly neighborhood birdie, and let's jump right into it. I wanted this home to feel both very old or traditional and small, which is why I started with the outside. I was thinking of a very rough layout that is often seen in very traditional homes, which is a kind of circular layout where you can kind of go from room to room to room to room to room. But other than that, I was more focused on the outside. I wanted this to look like an old traditional home that could have been there for several decades. And I wanted it to be small because a lot of older people like to live on a smaller footprint so that they can have an easier time taking care of the place and don't have to take care of a million rooms. I also wanted this to be fully on ground level, so it's easy accessible. I struggled a lot with the roof because I wanted a fairly uniquely shaped house, and it did not work out with the roof. I was going for a roof that had a few quirks maybe, but none of them felt right. I tried a few of them, and in the end it took me probably 15 minutes or so to settle on a completely different style of roof, just so that the house has some character but is also not completely wacky. It was supposed to be a practical home after all, and not some very eccentric mansion or anything like that. So it took me quite a while to settle on a compromise here, and I added the quirk mainly with the skylight in the back because I thought that was the quirkiest I could get without it looking very, very wacky. The family home is, as I said, pretty traditional. I was incorporating pretty much all of the traditional windows and doors the new pack has for us. But the grandparents that live there are pretty modern. They're not at all antiquated. In my vision, they have this old home. Maybe they even have it from their parents back in the day, so it's a old family home. But they are pretty modern. So what I did was I incorporated relatively modern furniture with relatively old furniture. Maybe some of the things are family heirlooms they took with them. Some of them are things they bought new, and those will reflect their slightly more modern tastes and things, at least for what we consider grandparents to be like. So this was a kind of contrast that was important to me because I wanted these grandparents to feel like real people and not like caricatures of grandparents. So the house is fairly traditional, and some of the furniture may be traditional, but it also reflects their more modern personality, both in the style choices they made, but also in the objects we can see. It does not neglect, however, that they are fairly old and the house is fairly old, and their sense of modernity does not mean that they have to discard things that were important to them when they were young. So it is more or less marrying the older styles with the newer styles. This is also reflected in the wallpapers I chose. I went for colored wallpaper instead of motif wallpaper. I went for some textures and soft colors so that it really marries the style of the home and does not clash with it, with the more old style home, but also gives it a slightly modern touch that allows for maybe more modern or timeless furniture to be placed there and not feel misplaced. There was really a balance to strike because I also didn't want to go ultra modern or very stylish and modern. So you see me go through a few tiles here and ultimately setting for the most basic ones because otherwise it would have been just too modern. The living room I fairly struggled with, not gonna lie, because I did build this house inside out, and that meant I didn't really consider where everything goes yet. And I struggled fitting everything I wanted to fit. It was me going back and forth for probably 30 minutes. And I ended up actually resizing the room and the entire house a little bit, making it a tiny bit larger. I didn't want it to be a very big house. It was supposed to be small and also fairly cozy, but I just didn't find the room to put everything in there without it looking very, very cramped. Because aside from the dining room table, I also wanted there to be a game table. I wanted the kids to visit the grandparents and be able to play some games there. And I struggled. So you see me go through a ton of different layouts. But at least for the color scheme, I was pretty set pretty early on, both because of the windows and because of the fireplace. They had certain colors in them that I mirrored in the wallpaper and in the furniture, one of them being this blue type of color. So that was just kind of tying in everything for me, so the windows would definitely match. And that also went pretty well with these ideas about their aesthetic being both modern and traditional. You have these fairly blush and toned down colors, almost subscribing to this grayish aesthetic with how soft the colors are and how much beige is in the room and how much wood tones are there, but then not quite. There is some color in here which is also part of the more old fireplace and the old style windows. So I like that. Same thing basically with the couch table there. It's a tad old and a tad modern. It's basically modern traditionalism is what I would call this home. That worked really, really well. So at least I had that going for me while I was super struggling with the layout. It's also not gonna stay like this. Things will get shuffled around quite a bit. The only thing I was pretty sad on pretty early on was the couch in that nook. But other than that, I was shoving things around. As you can see here, I'm experimenting with a different bathroom layout. The furniture there is not gonna stay. I'm just trying to see if I can even fit everything in there. I was downsizing the kitchen, upsizing the kitchen, downsizing the bathroom, downsizing the living room. I was going through the work and it just did not fit. I was struggling. Additionally, you'll see that once I put the game table in, it was kind of clashing with the dining table. There were so many chairs in there, especially because I also wanted to incorporate 2 rocking chairs so that the grandparents can sit by the fireplace together. And there were too many chairs. And that was because all of the chairs were so grouped together. There was very little room in between them. And I noticed that and I tried changing the color of the chairs. I was trying to change the orientation of the chairs. I was even trying to use different chairs, lesser chairs, like have only 3 people play and only 4 people eat. It was struggling and it did not work. It looked so cramped. It basically, you can see it here, it just looks like a town hall. And no matter what I tried, it wouldn't go any better. So eventually I just had to understand that these two cannot go next to each other. And with a little bit more space in between them, it actually works immediately better. But it was still very cramped. So in the end, this is where I changed the layout of the house and settled with I need a larger living room and just bring the kitchen out a bit to the front. With that measurement, I can put the dining room table a little bit more to the side and add even more space in between the dining table and the rest of the chairs, making this room a bit more breathable. We don't want to be cramped and bumping into each other all the time when we move in our chairs. And this way I could also mix and match the spaces. So by that I mean I have the dining room section next to the bookshelf and then next to the fireplace. and the game table with the dining room chairs is just on opposite of the music space, and it's a little more fluent. And in such a tiny space, that just helps a lot with making this room feel more traversable. So with the layout finally being settled, I could start decorating the room. And what I wanted to do was, as I said, incorporate more modern styles with more traditional styles, but making the layout seem decidedly modern. Like modern people took old things and kind of fit them into their life. And I had to incorporate a lot of little details about their personality and about their children and grandchildren, because this is definitely part of the family unit. They may live in their own space, but they are part of the family, and this is a very close-knit and very social family. So I really wanted it to appear this way. So you'll see me add a lot of personal items that I hope tell a story, and you'll see me add a lot of picture frames that will later be filled with family photographs, and you'll see me add a lot of trinkets that look like children made them, so maybe their grandchild gave that to them for their birthday or Christmas or whatever, and they just placed it proudly. And I wanted to add some clutter, something that says, okay, these people are a bit quirky, they like these things, like the board games on the music station. Just little nods here and there that this is not standard grandparent TM, but these are people, these are personalities living there, and they're part of a greater family. So I love this new stove. I would marry it if I could. I used the new diaper trash. I did not fully test if that works as a trash can, but it was in the trash can department, so why the fuck not? Because I wanted to have a closed trash can. I have wanted a closed trash can forever, and this is now the only one we got, and you bet I'm gonna use that. Because especially in the kitchen, you want to have a closed off trash can. It smells. Well, anyway, tea time. Tea time smells good, better than trash. I should talk more about tea. I just think it's a very cozy grandparent thing to have tea time. And here you see me place one of the items that's very kid friendly, and straight away another one. Just something that their grandchild made them, and they are so proud of it, they have to display it. Over the course of gameplay, probably I will add a lot of painted pictures of the kid and whatnot, just so that it's really adding up. And I used the new bathtub again because it's gorgeous and I love it. And actually also the new sink and a new side table as decoration later on. This is clearly a renovated bathroom. This bathroom is clearly not original to the house. You can tell from the tiles alone. So it only made sense that when the bathroom tiles aren't exactly incredibly dated, that the rest of the bathroom also wouldn't be decidedly dated. So I went for some more modern aesthetic in that room. It also makes sense that a bathroom is updated after a while. And this is the bedroom. The bedroom, again, a mix of old and new. So, for example, with this mirror, I was thinking this is an old family heirloom that's been in this bedroom for their parents' generation probably as well. So it just makes sense that they kept it. There's probably memories and emotions attached to it, and they just incorporated it to their more modern style by choosing a modern style that's still drawing on old classic styles. And so they are basically incorporating stuff from multiple generations in a way that is a modern aesthetic, and this mismatched items, it works. And especially when they add stuff like this mirror, which is fairly modern in style, but it makes sense. This is something they just picked up at some point, for example, to make this little getting ready station. But also like an old rug they still had from their parents, and it's probably expensive, so they keep it. It's just incorporating old with new is a way to make modern people still associate with the past and not just deny it for the sake of being modern. And this is something that's happening throughout the space. We're mixing traditional styles with modern styles, with farmhouse styles. just so we know they lived a long life and they've collected things, but they have been updating their style, they have been updating their taste, and it's just how this worked out. I also gave them a computer. They're the modern set of grandparents. They have a computer, they know how to use it, and it's just part of their identity that they're going with the times. So I just thought it right to give them a computer. I didn't think it right though to give their house a dedicated office space because it's so old that I don't think they necessarily always had them in small houses. Now, family is very important to these Sims, so I will incorporate a lot of family gameplay in this. So you see me put a swing set and a toy box and some other toys and everything just scattered about the garden and the home so that the kids are really part of this home. They may not live there, but they are surely invited and they're over there often and constantly, so it just makes sense to also have some stuff to entertain them. They have sleepovers there, they visit with the rest of the family, and so the kids do have a space there. They are part of the family that lives here, and the family that lives here is part of the bigger family out there. So what you see now is me putting in some finishing touches with some greenery on the walls. We all know I love that. And also some shrubs around the side and the front of the building, just to tie it in more to the surroundings and have it a bit grounded in nature. And just, these kinds of things, just adding some interest to places that are empty, adding a little play section for the kids, and then I'm done. So let's look at the build, everyone. Let's tour it. So this is the front of the building where you enter it when you come to visit. It's just a very standard entryway, everything they need, stuff to put their letters, keys and shoes, and store some items. Left door goes to the kitchen, and the first door to the right is the door to the bedroom. In this bedroom, we see a lot of incorporation of the old and the new, the modern, the dated, and the back in style. And it ties together very well because we actually mix not one or two, but like 3 or 4 decades. The next room opposite to it is the bathroom, which has had an overhaul in recent years, but it's still fairly simple and it doesn't look too modern for them. Didn't go overboard there. And down the hall is where the living room space is, and the living room space is really cozy. It's a small space that incorporates eating and living, and because of the open archways, also the cooking. And really, when the family visits, they can all get together there and they have a good time. In the kitchen, you can see a bit of their personality. They obviously like to drink tea. They have a few trinkets from their kids. And you can tell very well the roundabout way of building that I explained in the beginning, where you can really take a grand tour from the entryway once around the house. And opposite to the living room, you can also enter the garden space where they have room enough for the family to visit them and have a garden party, and places for the kids to play, as well as some tiny gardening space. But other than that, they kept the garden fairly limited. There's not too much to do here. They are old, they don't need so much to work to do in their garden. They want to choose when to work in the garden and when not to, so they kept it simple and easy. And that's the build. I hope you like it, and I hope I see you in the next video. Goodbye!